Okay, welcome to this video where we're going to cover the subjects of traumatic experience and within freediving. I'm a hypnotherapist, and I'm Alexis Eischen, and Wayne.
I'm Wayne. I'm a freediving instructor.
Who's experienced a traumatic experience in freediving.
While
right?
freediving, I had a massive blackout. Yeah.
So you own a freediving school
Yes.
in Hong Kong?
Yes.
And the type of students that you have currently might benefit also from understanding these states. Yeah.
Yes.
So what happened? When was it? And
that happened in 2017, October 9th, if I remember correctly.
that's very precise.
In Hong Kong.
Yeah.
I was taking my AIDA 3 course.
AIDA 3.
How detailed you want me to go through into this, or?
The most important is to briefly talk about the conditions when it started.
Okay.
Did you have any elements of or indicators that something was going to happen, and what happened briefly?
I don't say I had any indicators. I'll just go through from beginning to end in a briefly. So it's AIDA 3. It's back then they only have literally one open water session for one course. And it was like a 24 meter requirement. So it has been already 10 months since I dived any open water while doing that course. The last one was in December, where I did my AIDA 2, and I only had like 2-3 dives maybe. One free immersion to 16, and then one constant weight to 16, and then one 10 meter rescue, finished course. And then I did AIDA 3, and I did all my pool, my theory, everything was done by March, but they didn't have a boat available until October, so it was a long gap in my diving. And then what happened was it was choppy, and they didn't really teach me much. I didn't learn much during AIDA 2, so I don't have none of the basic skills, but I still forced myself to 25 meters, and then I must have hyperventilated before that because I'm so nervous. I'm so scared of not performing.
Hyperventilating, which is subconsciously?
Subconsciously.
Yeah.
And I didn't know. Well, I noticed some symptoms. I told my instructor that, and if I remember correctly, he said, "Okay, it's fine. Just do it, and you get over it."
Yeah.
I didn't feel like anything was going to go wrong. I just remembered that I was very scared. I was very nervous. I wasn't relaxed at all.
Yeah.
And then what happened was, as I come up, I start to lose memory, but in the footage that my instructor filmed, I was pulling on the rope and I'm finning at the same time, and around somewhere between 10 meters and 7 meters, I blacked out, bubbles came out, and then he rescued me and brought me back up on the surface.
Yeah.
But I had a terrible lung squeeze.
You had
and throat squeeze. So I came up, I started coughing blood. It was pink, it was like bubbly, and I also had lots of streaking blood coming out. So that actually was the good part, because the bad part is to come, because they left me all alone on the boat. So I blacked out at around 11 a.m. and they left me on the boat alone, no medical assistance, no oxygen.
Wow.
And they did come back for lunch at 1 o'clock-ish, and they poked their head in, asked me how you're doing, but I was having trouble breathing.
Yeah.
I was not in a good state, basically. And it wasn't until like 4 or 5 p.m. that they came back onto the boat. They start driving back to the shore, and in the end, I walked into the hospital alone. The instructor didn't come with me. I had to call him myself to tell him, okay, I'm in the hospital now. But by the time I got to the hospital, the doctors diagnosed that I have pneumonia because seawater entered my lungs. I forgot what it was, but the x-ray showed there was damage on my lungs at the time, at the bottom of my lungs. And I was stabilized, and I had to stay 4 nights in the hospital there. And that became, I think, even though mentally I didn't feel danger, I couldn't register at the moment, but my body remembered all the trauma. So about, I think 5 months later, I went to I started freediving again, and And then much later on, about 1 or 2 years later, I went to do my instructor course. My body still remembered all the trauma.
Yeah. So how did it manifest? When you say
Yeah.
the body remembered, what did you observe?
Not so much as what I observed as what the result was. Because my body remembered the feeling of blacking out. And so every time I reach anywhere near 30 meters, I start freaking out.
Yeah.
In the water while I'm diving.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
there was one time I dove 30 meters return. I think it was less than 50 seconds, and that's really fast.
Yeah.
I was sprinting down and sprinting up. And it took me a long time. It was really frustrating, and then I was really lucky. Alenka Artnik was at the same dive site, a dive shop that I was at, and one day we became friends, and one day she pulled me aside and she gave me a prep talk, and she re-taught me how to free dive properly. And really big thanks to her, and then also several other friends that I knew at the time. Also my instructor trainer there as well, and they helped me overcome it. Yeah. It wasn't overnight, but eventually it got to the point that I broke through 30, and then it was 32, and then one couple meters of the day, and then all of a sudden I knew it was 40 meters, and then I finally passed my instructor course.
Well done. Yeah. So when was the indicator? So you mentioned the fact that being in the water and being past 30 meters or being close to 30 meters triggered fear and panic.
Yeah.
And while you felt that, you've identified that this was the memory of the trauma.
Yes.
But was there anything else aside this experience underwater? Did you feel as well resentment or fear or anxiety in regards to diving, in regards to going through performance, preparing your performance beforehand?
I think I have all of those that you mentioned. Yeah. Of course I resent those people. I think it's only human too.
Yeah.
And
it's part of the trauma.
Yes.
So this is very interesting to mention as well, that the trauma is not only the event, but it's, if sometimes in therapy we take this example to say that trauma is like a fire that is somewhere hidden, and there are ways to behave with the fire. So if you put more wood into the fire, it's gonna burn, it's gonna be more vivid, even more powerful. And how do we put this extra wood? By accusing ourselves of doing something the wrong way, or having done something the wrong way, or by revisiting the memory and projecting that it should have been otherwise. And the very fact that we keep on doing this and keep on having these memories reinforce the trauma. Mm-hmm. And so what's interesting is to also see that it's not the event itself that created the trauma, but also all the surroundings, yes, the conditions. And this is why it's very interesting that you developed the background of this experience, mm-hmm, the conditions of this experience, and also to share with people who look at this video and who are potentially free dive instructors, to pay attention as well on how the subject or how the trainee can grasp this can approach these events, because this is what is going to actually create the trauma, not the actual conditions.
I would actually wholeheartedly agree. I think I thought it was a one-off event. After the trauma happened, I tried to forget about it, move on, and I didn't deal with it at all. And it just, as you say, I keep throwing wood into the fire. Yeah. Because I didn't try to acknowledge that it was trauma. I kept forcing myself to keep diving. I just keep diving. Eventually I'll figure it out. And that did not work out. And I was stuck in that bottleneck for at least half a year, if not more. There would have been much healthier ways to deal with it. Or if what your techniques were available, that would have been a better way to go at it. instead of just looking at diving. Because now as an instructor, I can honestly say that any uncomfortable dive you've had is a mini trauma in itself. And if you keep having these uncomfortable dives, it builds inside of you, and sooner or later you're gonna build to the point that you start to resent the sport that you're doing. You start to ask, why am I suffering so much? Is it worth suffering so much? And I think there would be,
There are many, like you said, I've noticed in freediving specifically, many people who approach the trauma by punishing themselves in order not to be in the right shape, or in what they project themselves of not being the behavior they would expect from their body. And this builds a distrust that is going to widen the space of between my projections, between what I aim for, and my performances and my reactions. And so the journey, the therapeutic journey that can be provided through freediving, but also the spiritual journey. Do you agree with that? I don't know if you.
I won't call myself spiritual, but I think for your mental health, it's very important. Yeah, that a lot of times, as well, like speaking as an Asian, how you described, we look at goals is exactly how we deal with it. You know, we put so much pressure on ourselves because the way we were brought up, that we often would freeze in front of performance right before we need to perform by ourselves without any, like we would be so pressurized, we would freeze when we stop performing. And learning how to process your emotions under duress would be a very, very helpful skill to have.
Yeah, we worked on that on the workshop, on previous workshop yesterday. So you already feel that you might implement these techniques on the public that you have.
Well, I would say that I'm not trained to do it at the moment. It's not something I can offer professionally. But if it's like with a friend and they consent to it, then I would, and they need asking for help from me, I would attempt to. But outside of that, I think I just touched the surface. Yeah. But I can really see how helpful it is, because quite a lot of my students come to me after a really bad experience with another instructor. I think at least 30 to 40% of my
30 to 40%
of students come to, they heard that, okay, I teach this certain way, and they come at me, they trial class, and quite often they would say, okay, I want to redo the whole course with you and only with you. And I can see a lot of them would have those trauma, and I don't have the skills to really bring them out of that trauma with my skill level at the moment. But with more training, I would think, and more time, it's possible. I guess.
And also there might be a concern as well as the projection of a student in regards to their trainer, and the very fact that they want to be confirmed. The skills to be confirmed. So sometimes, it's working with the trauma resolution specifically is probably not the thing to look for as an instructor, but coping with trauma if it happens, and guiding the person towards mental health, and to as well being guided with professionals is something probably to emphasize on instructors that might work for you as well, or might work with you. So how did you realize that you overcame the trauma? What was the consideration, that the observation that made you perceive that change?
I won't say I perceive, but just suddenly I can start doing the dives that I'm hoping to do.
So it's interesting is that you identified at that time that the trauma was linked to the capacity.
Yes.
Yeah. So and at that point the verification was only trauma is there or not, based on the fact that I can achieve or not. Okay.
Yes. it's almost, I think any freediver agree, like the fear is always there. You should have a little bit,
Yeah.
it shouldn't overwhelm you, but it should also keep you in check, that not let your ego take over, that you're just ego diving. But there's a difference between having fear and having trauma, I think. And trauma can overtake and control you. But if it's a healthy fear, you keep it in check. It's in control. It's just there to remind you that, hey, bad things can happen,
Yeah.
and you need to be careful.
Yeah, fear is necessary.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's necessary.
Yeah, totally agree. And so you somehow, through experience, through practice, trauma didn't seem to be there any longer.
Actually, it's a very interesting topic because it came back to me. I finished my instructor course. I was in the Philippines working as a safety diver for a whole year. I rescued people, so I've seen people black out. They've had injuries in front of me, and I've resuscitated them. But since then, since COVID, I've been teaching in Hong Kong for 5 years. And in that time, I've never dove for myself. I've never dived for myself. And last year, when I came to Bali, and for 10 days, I was trying to dive for myself, the same trauma came back. And I had the same block at 30 meters.
Okay, so yeah, this was the indicator. So you described it as a fear that came up
Yep.
when you reached around that surface. It was the same symptoms.
The same, yeah, very
Yeah.
similar.
But outside of the water, you didn't specifically have,
No,
you didn't rethink your dive and judge yourself.
no. And
No.
actually, during those dives, even though I feel completely relaxed, I feel completely prepared
Yep.
on the surface.
Yep.
Once I hit, I don't even have to look at my watch. I know exactly I'm at 30, and then I get this immense, overwhelming panic almost. And I would grab the rope and then swim back up. And then so it's been a year since then. I've identified that the reason why I would panic was because I wasn't prepared. So on this trip, right now, today, I dove almost to 40 meters. And I think I've overcame that trauma because I came prepared. I put in the hard work. I did a lot of pool sessions training. And I have the same fears when I'm training in the pool.
Yeah.
I overcame them by doing a lot of easy, I won't say easy training, but like it was achieved, so 25 meter carbon CO2 tables, but it was at a very difficult, like very little intervals, like I started 5 breaths. So this was a table Alenka gave me. So I do 5 breaths, rest, and then I go, and I keep going, and then 4 rounds of that, and then 4 breaths, 4 rounds of that, and then 3 breaths, 4 rounds of that, and then until it's like 1 breath, you exhale, take a full breath, and then you go. And that's very difficult. And through doing something extremely difficult, I've regained my confidence, at least in the water.
Yeah. Maybe I find it interesting to share the approach of trauma in my point of view as a therapist, to share with you the indicators that we would look for, or that I would look for in a session, to see if the trauma is still active or not. Would you be interested?
Sure.
Yeah. So basically, you said you see that there was an identification with the performance and the capacity.
Yeah.
So trauma was more or less related to what I'm capable of and what I'm not. So you identified already that it's automatic. It's an automatic behavior that's based on settings. So within a session, I would virtualize the conditions. I would recreate the set of conditions subconsciously, so that we can notice what are the traumatic responses potentially through the observation and the calibration of the body. How the person reacts when being exposed to the memory. As well, in order to access these memories, and we need first of all to bring enough security. So a space like the swimming pool, when you do freediving in a swimming pool, you create this support that is going to help the person reach a solid ground in case of fear, in case of panic attacks. So we would create something similar, and then the very fact that we project into the memory would indicate instantly if there are still some active responses. And the active responses could be feelings, awkward feelings, automatic responses in a trance that were not even seen consciously when I revisited the memory. Because sometimes we block emotions on a surface, so we don't access to some emotions because we've been used not to display. And so these emotions are not going to appear even to us. And culturally, sometimes this is the case. Sometimes we've been trained not to show emotions, and the direct access to our emotions can be limited. But through hypnosis and self-hypnosis, or NLP, we use an understanding. Well, we have an understanding of the body responses that you were able to discover yesterday. Mm-hmm. And so this is typically something that can be very useful for noticing, is the person still reacting to trauma potentially? And if you as an instructor have all this information, you will know how to redirect the person. You will know better how to position yourself, and anticipate also that there might be risks in guiding someone at certain depth. And you will know as well that if the person is rushing towards a performance, like becomes angry at not performing, and all of a sudden freezing and starting having a very different behavior that you can't really make sense of, there are potential ingredients of a trauma. There are potential information that you could look at, saying, oh, the person is acting weird, maybe there's something underneath the surface, and maybe I can offer the person to revisit and to have a talk. And this talk is, we need to be equipped with an understanding, first of all, of what is trauma, what are the body responses, but also what are the usual curves that we go through after trauma. So, you associated the performance and the fact that there was no spontaneous reaction. Actually, this is a perfect example of how you can verify if a trauma is there or not. But sometimes there are some layers that lay behind. So if you were thinking of trauma right now, thinking of the trauma that you've experienced, when you visualize that moment and you close your eyes, do you feel any emotion?
I think if I think back to that particular event, it wasn't the fear of having a blackout or having a lung squeeze. It was the fear of abandonment.
Yeah.
That was the strongest. So now I think even when I have those reactions when I dive to 30 meters, it's the fear that I won't be taken care of if I get injured.
Yeah. And this is still active?
I think so, yeah.
Wow, this is very precious to access this information, because if you neglect that emotion and you think that this emotion is not the actual information needed to know whether there is an active trauma or not, you're going to miss some parts of the fears that are actually worthy of being there. And taking this fear into account gives you new additional rules that you can take into account in order to improve your understanding of what another person might need in terms of reassurance, but also how you verify that your buddies are trustworthy. Mm-hmm. And so this comes with a lot of precious information.
Yes.
And neglecting the fear would be a misunderstanding of the complete trauma that happened. And what you raised is very precious as well, because sometimes, you know, it's like there's a saying, okay, so most of the time people defend a point of view of what they've been experiencing, and if somebody denies what they've been experiencing, because they were, like, for instance, you take two people who witnessed a dramatic situation, like a terrorist attack, for instance. Those two people, those two persons are going to have a very different version. It's well known. When we interview victims, of a similar event, of the same event, they have very, very different perceptions of what happened. And both of them are going to believe they're right, and they are going to reinforce their vision, and they're going to feel that they have to fight for being accepted or having their vision accepted until it's accepted. And most of the time, we want to be welcomed in the perception that we had of a certain situation. And this is typically how one example of how to go through resolution of trauma is understanding the actual vision that we had, the actual perception that was not accepted by the others that were involved, but also by myself, because sometimes we accuse ourselves of misinterpreting or being wrong in our perceptions, or we doubt that we saw, or we say, well, no, it can't be true, they must have done it for good reasons. But what matters is the actual core perception that we had at that time. So yeah, that's a path to identify, and potentially I would say that right now you still have a layer that might be activated. So there is something to revisit here, and yeah. So that's an interesting. Yeah, how do you feel about that? Yeah.
I feel what you said is very true. I think that for now, I'm diving at a depth that is not triggering that reaction yet.
Perfect.
I think eventually I'll hit that. I'll hit that bottleneck. It might not be 30 meters again, but as long as the conditions meet that, makes me fear that to have that sense of abandonment again, I think it would very well come back out.
Yeah. So, working on ways to prevent these conditions to be met. Mm-hmm. What are the ideas that you would have in mind in order to verify that?
Oh, I think if I have an untrustworthy body would be the first one.
And what specifically would you observe in your body that make you doubt about the worthiness of this body?
If they're too focused on themselves, focus them. I can tell if I can tell that they don't really have their heart in when they're safetying me. I would have that doubt. That would be my first reaction. Put it this way: I had a girlfriend who we broke up since, who was also a freediving instructor, and she's an amazing freediver. But at one point our relationship gotten so bad that when we're diving, even though she's right in front of me as my safety buddy, I didn't trust her that she would actually rescue me if I blacked out at that moment. So after that, I stopped diving with her. Yeah. That was the last time I ever dove with her, and then we broke up soon after that as well. That's one, I think. That if anything, that takes up 90%. Yeah. And then it would obviously the rest would be is there oxygen on nearby? If I black out, is that available? Yeah. Is there a doctor nearby available? Those professional help is available for medical assistance. If not, then I would have more of a reservation. But I think the biggest part would still be the people that I'm diving with. Do they have my safety in mind? or are they just so focused on their own performance that they don't have the space to look after me if it needs to be. Yeah. And I'm not asking them to baby me, but I'm asking like, okay, can you rescue me from a certain depth if I'm diving to a certain depth?
Yeah. So you already implemented such preparatory questions or preparatory tests that you could
Yeah, I would talk to, like here when I'm diving here in Bali, before, if it's someone new that I've never dove with, I'll talk to them, I'll see where their comfort level. I'll tell them exactly how I would dive, what 5 dives I'm doing today, and are you comfortable with meeting me doing this? Are you comfortable with being my safety while I'm doing this? And if they show reservation or they show carelessness, then I might choose a different buddy. Or I might dive, I would still dive with them if I don't have a choice, but I would dial my performance way back.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't be doing any PBs, I would be doing something that I know I would have no trouble with. And in a sense, that's also not good for me because I'll lose a practice session that I could perform at a different level. But I would still dive with them, but maybe never again. Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, so this can be very helpful for people who see that and haven't experienced trauma as well. Maybe even more to people who have experienced trauma in experiencing an accident underwater. So what do you feel could be added? What would you suggest? What would you like to share?
In terms of?
Any advice, any piece of advice of what you went through and to prevent some situations that you often see that might be...
That's a very, very difficult question to answer because as an instructor now, my advice to anyone who wants to start freediving is find a good instructor. Doesn't matter which organization, but find an instructor who, number one, has safety in heart, who does what he says and not just, okay, safety first, but, not actually doing it safely. I mean, I've been accused by someone that I'm too safe, and I take it as a compliment, I mean, thank you. But if you're taking a course, if you don't know what freediving is, and you want to find out, you won't know if your instructor is any good or bad until you've paid and you've taken the course in full, and then you have someone else, another instructor to compare it with. My first advice is to find a good instructor, usually through a friend who's done a course of that certain instructor and has felt safe, felt solid. And then second is find good buddies, obviously, the people that would have your interest at heart. If at least safety, may not be of interest. Third is treat others as you would like to be treated. I mean, that's the golden rule. How you would like to die, how you would like others to buddy you, would just do exactly that, and then eventually you start to find like-minded people who would gather around, or you would start to attract them to be around you, and you would start to form circles that suit your needs, because freediving can be anything to anybody. To find the right group. I'm very lucky here in Bali at Apnea that the similar-minded people keep showing up. If anything, actually, there are 2 people who I haven't seen before COVID, just without announcing, just showed up, and we get to dive together again, and we're buddies now after so many years. And I've made new buddies that I feel totally safe with. I've also met others who are not quite at the same level, not to their fault, they're just not at my level. So yeah, find people you trust. I think in freediving especially, trust has to be absolute. You can't be down at whatever depth it is and then worrying about the person you're diving with is absent-minded, is maybe like thinking about something else. You don't want to worry where your car keys are. You don't want to be like worrying about your mortgage down at that depth, right? Trust has to be absolute with yourself, with your buddy, with your instructors, with your equipment. So
Thank you. Well done.
Yeah.
And how about if people want to meet you, if people want you to take a course with you, how can they find you?
Oh, you can find me on Instagram with Arete Apnea, which is Arete and then Apnea. I'm based out of Hong Kong, but during the winter times I always try to travel out. And I try to spend a couple months overseas, do my own training, and meet other people. I'm very grateful that I get to meet you and do your workshop yesterday. Yeah, and a little bit of self-promotion. I speak English and Cantonese at a native level. I'm also fluent in Mandarin, Chinese, and Japanese at a professional level as well. And so hopefully whoever it is that do need those services, I'm available.
He's great, yeah. And so, yeah, you probably just a brief note on the workshop that we were doing yesterday. So I hosted a workshop in Apnea on how NLP hypnosis can help instructors go through trauma resolution techniques that can also identify previous signs of trauma and how to help settle a deeper state of relaxation through these techniques on a basic understanding of this speech approach, and also how to how to synchronize with your subject, and as well how to adapt your speech according to the person in front of you. So feel free to join me as well on my Instagram, on my website. You can find all the details. So everything will be in the description. You can also contact me directly by message or by commenting on this video. Thank you for watching, and subscribe if you haven't.
Like and subscribe down below.
Thank you.
Thank you.